Trump is set to meet with Zelensky as he renews focus on the Russia-Ukraine war.
The president is also turning his attention back to Ukraine after a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday. Trump says they will soon meet in person in Hungary. But today he meets with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House, and that is where we find our Nancy Cordes, as we often do. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Yeah, talks with Russia and Ukraine appeared to have stalled out over the past couple of months. But now President Trump is trying to revive them. After speaking with Russian President Vladimir Putin for 2.5 hours yesterday, he has agreed to another meeting with him.
Within 2 weeks or so. Pretty quick.
It'll be the second one-on-one this year for President Trump and Vladimir Putin. This time, they'll meet in the Hungarian capital of Budapest, hosted by strongman Viktor Orban.
Because of my relationship with President Putin, I thought this would be very quick. And it's turned out to be, who would think I did Middle East before I did this?
After the two last met in Alaska in August, Putin rejected Trump's plans for a sit-down that included Ukraine's president. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that has not changed.
Did Vladimir Putin commit to sitting down with President Trump and President Zelensky?
He committed to sitting down with President Trump, as President Trump's Truth Post put out for you.
Ukrainian officials say a massive overnight strike on Wednesday exposes Moscow's real attitude towards peace. Russia's attack on energy and infrastructure facilities involved 320 drones and 36 missiles. Today, in the Oval Office, Zelensky will likely ask again for long-range Tomahawk missiles capable of striking deep into Russia. Trump has said repeatedly that he's thinking about it.
Look, if this war's not going to get settled, I'm going to send them Tomahawks. I may say that. The Tomahawk is an incredible weapon, very offensive weapon. And honestly, Russia does not need that.
Trump says he actually warned Putin on the phone yesterday that he might give Ukraine the Tomahawks. But then he told reporters that the U.S. also needs a major stockpile of them. So it's just not clear, Tony, that Trump is ready to take that step.
Nancy, and what can you tell us about this latest military strike on a boat in the Caribbean?
Yes, a U.S. official confirms that a new strike has been carried out. That's happened yesterday. And for the first time that we know of, Tony, there were survivors aboard the vessel. Now, this marks the 6th U.S. attack since early September on boats that the administration claims are carrying drugs. At least 27 people have been killed in these strikes, according to the administration. But the number of people on board the boat that was hit yesterday and how many actually survived that hit, that is all still unclear. In a surprise move on Thursday, Admiral Alvin Halsey, the regional commander who's been overseeing these escalating attacks, he announced that he is stepping down after only a year into what is typically a 3-year job. He didn't publicly state the reason for his departure, so we still have a lot of questions this morning, Tony.
It does raise questions. Nancy, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
President Trump participates in a bilateral launch with the president of Ukraine. Poor dudes, imagine being a fisherman getting blown to bits just to live and become the face of South American drug trafficking. It is completely unjustifiable. It is completely unjustifiable, completely unacceptable that the administration is very openly killing people overseas, violating the sovereignty of a foreign nation, while simultaneously just like killing people. And saying that they're killing people and even making jokes about killing people and jokes about their innocence, the innocence of those they have killed. Donald Trump, on numerous occasions at this point, has made jokes about how, maybe fishermen should think twice before going out to fish off of the coastline of Venezuela. It's insane, completely insane. Like, even in the maximalist position of what they're claiming is taking place here, even if these guys are like rugged drug traffickers, okay, straight up, what they're doing here is completely unacceptable, okay? If they are actual drug traffickers, the thing you're supposed to do is communicate with the sovereign nation in an effort to exhaust all options, to say, hey, these are drug traffickers coming from your shorelines. Please, can you apprehend them? And if they don't do that, you're supposed to track these drug traffickers and then intercept their boats once they get to international waters, for example. There is no world where you just go, I've decided these random fishermen are drug traffickers and we're going to kill them. Okay? That is crazy. Like, and I'm saying even if they were drug traffickers, as the administration is claiming, without any evidence whatsoever, I can't believe it. Like, it's so ridiculous. Aren't these war crimes? Yes, they are. On True and On a few years ago, I predicted if JSOC started doing strikes against drug cartels in Latin America, it would immediately come out that all the victims were innocent people, which never happened in Southwestern Asia because of the much larger cultural and linguistic barriers. This is correct. Our airstrikes do not hit who we say they will hit, and they do not work strategically. We are going to learn that well as this keeps up. It's like God, governments in general treat human life with no respect. And especially the American government, whether it be our own citizens, whether it be our own military, and certainly those in the crosshairs, okay? We just straight up have no respect for the dignity of human life. We do not care about it at all. And I don't think this is appropriate. And I don't think this is going to I don't think that this is a moral thing. I don't think that this is appropriate, and I think it's going to get worse. The less restrained this administration becomes, the worse things are going to get, because the next stage in this, the extrajudicial killings of random people overseas, will inevitably loop back around. First, you drone strike random fishermen, then you start drone striking Americans. And a lot of people don't understand that. And at that point, it's too late anyway. That is not that far-fetched or as big a leap as you think it is, okay? Make no mistake. Look at the terrorism designation. Post 9/11, the terrorism designation was a vague standard applied to anyone and everyone that the American government wanted to zap off the planet, okay? And they did so. And over the course of 25 years, we greatly expanded who we called terrorists. And now the Trump administration is using that same vague designation in an unconstitutional manner on enemies that he considers at the domestic level to be terrorists. We didn't get here out of nowhere. This wasn't an overnight change. It's completely ridiculous.
Much, everybody. It's an honor to be with a very strong leader, a man who has been through a lot, and a man who I've gotten to know very well, and we've gotten along really very well. And we had a big call yesterday, as you know, with President Putin, and we'll be talking about it. President Zelensky of Ukraine has endured a lot. I mean, he really has. He's endured a lot, and we've endured it with him. To be honest, it's been a long time, and I think we're making great progress. So we're going to be talking about that today. We'll be talking about what took place yesterday with my phone call with President Putin. And I think that things are coming along pretty well. It began with Alaska, where I think certain guidelines were discussed, and we want to see if we can get this done. This was long ago into the Biden administration. I came here and we inherited this, and we'd like to see if we could finish it, end it. We want it ended.
Fox News poll of New York City mayoral race Jewish voters. Margin of error is 9%. 42% Cuomo, 38% Mamdani.
So many people have died in this war, and we're gonna get it ended. So I just want to thank you all very much. If you have a couple of questions, go ahead, please. In fact, before I do that, let me just ask the President to say a few words. Thank you, President.
Pleasure. Glad to meet you again, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the invitation. Again, my congratulations with your successful ceasefire in the Middle East.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you did it. And I think this is the momentum to finish Russia's war against Ukraine. I think that, yes, we understand that Putin is not ready. I think not ready, but I think that I'm confident that with your help, we can stop this war, and we really need it. We see that they don't have successful steps on the battlefield, and it's good. I think that their army is weak now, but a lot of losses. They have a lot of losses and in economy and people, and I think this is a very important moment. And I wanted to thank you, Mr. President, after our phone calls. Yesterday I had a good opportunity to meet with a big American energy company.
You're joking, right? Mom Downing hasn't denounced Sharia law, just saying. For your live show, let's not forget Sharia law court judges in 2020 married over 50,000 children to adults in nations like Palestine, Jordan, Africa, and Iran. What the f are you saying, bro? What the f is happening? It's just...
Companies, and they're ready to help us. Yes, after all these attacks on our infrastructure, Russian attacks, and etc. And I had also meetings, thanks to your team. We had meetings with a good military companies. We spoke about air defense, and I want to share it after with details where we are. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Very good. And I think it looks beautiful in his jacket.
Yeah?
It's beautiful. I hope people notice. It's a good. It's actually very stylish. I like it.
President Trump.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Under the Biden administration,
This is the big deal, man. This is the big deal, that he's wearing a jacket.
was fearing of a possible escalation. They were not allowing the Ukrainians to strike into Russia, fearing of this escalation.
Yeah.
Would your administration allow Ukrainians to strike deep into Russia?
We're going to be talking about that. That's something we'll be talking about. You're right. It's an escalation, but we'll be talking about that.
Mr. President. Will President Zelensky join you in Hungary to meet President Putin?
Because it's a leader that we like. We like Viktor Orban. He likes him. I like him. It's a country that's a safe country. Done a very good job. He's been a very good leader in the sense of running his country. He doesn't have a lot of the problems that other countries have. And so we've decided that we'll be going to be with Viktor Orban, and he will, I think he'll be a very good host.
President Trump. President Trump. President Trump. Right here.
It's
President Trump.
Hungary, yeah. We're doing Hungary, yeah.
With Putin. Trilateral meeting, or is it just you and Putin?
To be determined, but I would say most likely it's going to be a double meeting. It'll be a double meeting, but we will have the President, Zelensky, in touch. There's a lot of bad blood with the two presidents.
I mean, it's a flex, and it's an expansion of like what previously would be unfathomable. Just like when Benjamin Netanyahu flies to the United States of America, even though it's not a party to the Rome Statute, so like, or it's not under the ICC jurisdiction. That's an expansion. That's a flex. That's to say, like, yeah, we are able to do war crimes, be branded a war criminal, and still get protection, political protection from the most powerful nation on the planet. And this is working in an identical fashion where after years and years of valid concerns and posturing, even though it is hypocritical for the Western world to posture against anyone doing war crimes, because they do it themselves as well. But regardless, like war crimes are still war crimes, okay? It is valid for Vladimir Putin to be branded a war criminal, 100%. And this basically is another expansion of what previously was considered unfathomable. He's going on European soil. He's going on European soil as someone who is supposed to be branded a war criminal by the ICC to basically have a meeting with the President of the United States of America. That's it. That's like, I don't know. I just, I understand. I understand that in order for peace to prevail, you do need to communicate with the adversaries. I am in favor of this. I'm in favor of treaties. I'm in favor of peace. I'm in favor of longstanding ceasefires, no matter where it is, right? And I've been an advocate since day one, and I've been yelled at quite a bit by pro-NATO people for this position, saying that I want Ukraine to fall into the hands of Russian control or some shit like that. But I don't even think that this is actually anything beyond Putin taking advantage of Trump once again by claiming that he will be more receptive to Trump's advances while still continuing his strategy on the ground. And with less power in the hands of the United States of America around the global stage, Putin gets away with this. And in the absence of America bringing China to the table, like bringing all parties involved in this to the table to commit to longstanding peace, offering a favorable deal to all parties without completely eroding Ukrainian sovereignty, I don't believe that there is going to be a just or equitable or any solution whatsoever. But I don't think America is going to do that because they're still playing a different ball game. They're still behaving with the rules of post-World War II. Like, they're still operating on the Cold War boundaries or beyond Cold War boundaries. Like, they're still operating like it's the post-Cold War era of peak neoliberalism from like the 80s and 90s all the way to the early 2000s, the 2010s, where there's only one game in town, and that's the United States of America. There's only one player in town that, and when they say jump, everybody says how high, and it's gone. It's over. This is not how it works anymore. That's it. If you are a foreign adversary that is a nuclear superpower and you want to engage in irredentist behavior against your neighboring nations, as Russia has done, you get to do it. And there are enough economic, there is a powerful economic counterbalance to America's global prominence here that can back Russia, and that is China. So unless you actually try to reach a reasonable deal with China and bring them to the table, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to happen. And Russia will continue to say, oh, yeah, we want peace. We want peace for sure. We want to stop the war. We want to stop the war for sure, without actually doing that. And if you have shown over the past couple of years that you are not capable of striking an economic blow that is significant enough to Russia to force them to stand down, and you can't present a strong enough defensive force against Russian military incursion into Ukraine, as the past couple of years have shown, have demonstrated, then you have to look for a different alternative. That's it. America is not recognizing that we are no longer living in a world where it is the hegemonic superpower. We are living in a multipolar world, and the American government doesn't recognize that and postures as though they are the singular power still. They're not. The faster they recognize this, the easier things will be. But it kind of feels like America's just going to refuse to do that and continue bullying our allies, continue bullying the countries that are vassal states, demanding more tribute from them, with hopes that that kind of reinforcement of power, prominence, and influence will cause others to remember who's really in charge. I think all that does is ultimately shorten the timeline of American empire, because eventually there are going to be actors in these countries that demand sovereignty and will say, all right, we're done. We're done with this. Continue to suffer. HasanAbi, you deserve it. Turkey, the plastic table. I mean, when America suffers, the whole world suffers, as you can see, because the decisions that we make are consequential for everyone. And empires do not go away quietly. They oftentimes actually become increasingly more violent. Okay?
And I'm not speaking out of turn when I say it's a very difficult situation. You know, we just settled the war, and after thousands of years, I guess, people say anywhere from 500 to 3,000 years. And I was in rooms, as you saw, because you were with me, a lot of you were with me last week, with leaders that didn't like each other, but they were able to get along. These two leaders do not like each other, and we want to make it comfortable for everybody. So one way or the other we'll be involved in threes, but it may be separated.
President Trump, President Trump.
Doesn't agree to peace in Hungary.
Was he what? Where are you from?
From Ukraine. He actually had a
Okay,
conversation
good.
with me.
Good, yeah.
What if President Putin doesn't agree to peace in Hungary? What do you do then? Do you have...
Well, let's see what happens. I mean, what if? I think he will. I think that President Putin wants to end the war, or I wouldn't be talking this way. I think he wants to end the war. I spoke to him yesterday for 2.5 hours. We went through a lot of details. He wants to get it ended. I think that President Zelensky wants to get it ended. Now we have to get it done.
President Trump, Kara Castro.
I have even less confidence, judging by what he has done so far, and also judging by how little power of influence he has over Vladimir Putin here, in the absence of trying to set a side deal with China. Okay, that's a big if, and he's not going to do that regardless. I have even less confidence that he is going to secure a ceasefire here than maintaining a permanent ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinians. Okay? Because remember, America could stop Israel with one phone call, but America cannot stop a foreign adversary with one phone call. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So he has even less leverage in this situation. He has no leverage whatsoever in the situation in terms of telling Putin what to do and what not to do. He has zero leverage. Okay, so you must gain leverage. How do you gain leverage? You bring other larger parties, larger backers. Okay, one other way to try to escalate the tariff regime is by going to the secondary markets that Russia utilizes, India, right? But that is far too consequential for America's relationship with India, because if Russia is using India as a secondary market to allow its oil and gas industry to enter the international marketplace as a mediator, right? And America wants to put an end to that, that is going to cause financial harm to India. India is obviously still self-interested, and they're going to go, yeah, we're not going to do that. Okay? They're going to say, we're not going to do that. Sorry, big dog. That's not happening. Or they're going to reconsider who they want to be in the sphere of influence of. Right now, they're fine with being in the sphere of influence of the West, while also simultaneously playing in the, playing the middleman role that they have, a bulwark against China. But also, they're also simultaneously too close to China in proximity to take a stronger stance against China to begin with, and especially if China seemingly is demanding less restraint, or if China is seemingly not pushing ridiculous conditions on India when America is pushing conditions on India that they consider to be unfathomable, then that's going to ruin America's influence over India as well. Or it's going to hurt America's influence over India in general. Because in the past, when you were the singular hegemonic superpower, everyone had to deal with you. But now there is an alternative. And when there is an alternative, every action that you take needs to walk a fine line. If you are too heavy-handed with other regional powers like India, if you are far too aggressive in your approach, and you make demands that they consider to be bad for their own sovereignty, for their own people, for their own economic outlook, then they have another person that they can go to. So far, from the perspective of at least the European vassal states, they have not moved in the direction of China. Okay? They are still very much servile to Western interests. I think, xenophobia and Orientalist frameworks play somewhat of a role in this calculation for sure. And I think they're also terrified of living under a unipolar Chinese global rulership, because they've benefited greatly from Western power exchanging hands, but only going back to another Western country like the United States of America. And they are too fearful of having to deal with China, even as an even competitor. And they're especially fearful of having to be servile to Chinese foreign policy and Chinese interests. Okay? But India might have different considerations. India is too close in proximity to China. India has also shown time and time again that in spite of their, in spite of their back and forth with China, that they are willing to leverage a relationship with China. They're willing to leverage that to get better deals from the West. So this is something that Donald Trump has to consider.
Over from Lindell TV, and although I love asking
My point is,
questions
I don't
today,
think they can rely on anti-China tendencies. I don't think they can rely on like the existing anti-China tendencies of India for as long as they have, especially if China decides to offer better deals to India, for example, or a lot less restraint than America is offering.
For President Zelensky
Sure.
of Ukraine.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Our President Zelensky, President Trump, just brokered a peace deal in the Middle East that all Americans,
Lindell
both
TV,
sides of
hell
the
yeah.
aisle, are very proud of. But to meet that deal, both sides had to make concessions. Our president has stuck out his neck in many ways to make a peace deal for your war as well. What specific concessions are you willing to make to end this war with Russia? Will you give up joining NATO? Americans have foreign war fatigue, and our president, as he said, we need our Tomahawks too.
To me.
Yes, you, President Zelensky.
Thank you very much.
That's some question. Right?
So many questions in one. Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I think we need to sit and speak. The second point, we need ceasefire. Even now, you see in the Middle East, it's very difficult to hold ceasefire. Everywhere, in every war, it's very difficult. We want peace. Putin doesn't want. That's why we need pressure on him. We will speak with President today what we need. We understand what we need to push Putin to negotiation table. And as I said previously, so we are ready to speak in any kind of format, bilateral, trilateral, doesn't matter. Matter just peace. This is important. And we don't speak about NATO or NATO. For Ukrainians, it's very important. Of course, it's our decision, decisions of allies to decide where we are.
But are you willing to give up
Yes, but the
NATO?
most important thing for people in Ukraine, which are under each day's attacks, to have really strong security guarantees. NATO is the best, but weapon is very important. Allies on our side is very important, and between us, for us, bilateral security guarantees between me and President Trump is very important. I don't know, we didn't speak with details about it, but this is the most important document because the United States is very strong.
Sir, President Trump, you are the middleman right now, hoping to end this conflict. Who is doing a better job negotiating, President Zelensky or President Putin?
I think they're both doing a great job in that sense. We have to get it done. We've got to take some of the hatred of each other. You know, they don't like each other. I say that in front of President Zelensky, but I say it in front of President Putin too. They have tremendous bad blood. It really is what is holding up, I think, a settlement. I think we're going to get it done, and we have to make it long-lasting. As I said in the Middle East, everlasting, right? Everlasting. And the Middle East is a much more...
What concessions can Trump give to India to make them more favorable to their position? I do not know. Someone in the chat asked that question. I actually don't know. But what I do know is India currently enjoys the leveraged position that it has between China and the United States of America. And it certainly enjoys cheap oil and gas coming from Russia. So demanding that they actually stop that trade and shut off Russia's entry point into the international market is probably a non-starter, and therefore I'm not so sure how Trump is going to get to do that. Maybe I do think that as far as Russia goes, even without Chinese backing, they do have the power to influence they have the power to influence like a global oil shock if they wanted to. I mean, I don't know how much power they have at OPEC Plus. I mean, they still have a lot of power. America obviously has a lot of allies there too. Having said that, Russia still has the capacity to influence these decisions, and therefore cutting them out from the international market is going to be very difficult. Cutting them out and cutting their oil and gas from the international market is going to be impossible. Okay? But that is like one of the last tools in the tool belt that America has, because they already deployed the mother of all sanctions on Russia. Like, there are still some things that they can do to f with Russia's bag, but the mother of all sanctions did not work, seemingly, right? And if anything, it might have actually played a formative role in the creation of this secondary market outside of the SWIFT-backed petrodollar system. So every single day that goes by, I feel like America's leverage power is waning on the global stage. And they are not cognizant of this, I don't think. Or at least they're behaving as though that's not a reality. Isn't that kind of good? I mean, broadly, a multipolar world, depending on how both parties that at least still control certain parts of the planet operate, could be a better future. It's just that no one seemingly wants to engage in a collaborative effort here, and everyone is simply posturing, especially America. America's getting increasingly belligerent. Yeah, a multipolar world under capitalism is not good. Just different bad is right.
More complicated situation. You know, we had 59 countries
Make
involved,
America
and every one of
great
them
again. I know, because I'm American. Islam's got to go back to their country. Make me imagine a religion that allows marrying children allowed to be in America crazy. I agree. It is pretty crazy, which is why we should actually make it illegal for Christians to have child brides. Like, we should make it illegal across the board. Do you agree that we should be prosecuting Christian child brides in this country? You know, if there are Muslim child brides as well, we should prosecute that as well. But I'm pretty sure that if there's one party that actually has any sort of political prominence in this country, outsized political power, it's usually the Christian nationalists that are the ones who are advocating for child brides, not the Muslims, not the Islams, as you said. Do you have a take on that? Or is it okay when Christians do it? Because it kind of feels like you're advocating. If you're a anti-child marriage advocate like myself, you're going to actually get into a lot of trouble. You're going to have to advocate to prosecute in jail a lot of right-wing Christian nationalist pastors, prominent politicians. Am I wrong? Did you hear the words that were coming out of my mouth? I don't think you have a lot of comprehension skills.
agreed. And it's, it's sort of amazing. Most people didn't think that was doable. This is going to be something I really believe that's going to get done. I had a very good talk yesterday with President Putin. I think he wants to get it done.
And President Zelensky, right behind you. When we were in Israel with President Trump earlier in the week, we heard a lot about the difference in diplomacy between President Trump and President Joe Biden before him.
Yeah, child marriage is legal in 34 states with parental consent. Who do you think petitioned for this to happen? Do you think it was the Mohammedan influence, or do you think it was prominent Christian nationalists, different Christian sects, that ensured that this took place? That's one of the funniest lines of attack against Democrats in general. One of the funniest lines of attacks against Democrats in general from conservatives has been like this notion that like Democrats are pro-pedophilia or some shit. It's like, dude, if you look at numbers on the board, pedocon is a theory like the theory of gravity is a theory, okay? Every other week, there's another prominent Republican influencer, prominent Republican pastor that was like Trump's spiritual advisor at a certain point, getting outed as a child molester. And you're over here being like, but the Democrats. Go out of here.
What do you see as the biggest difference in diplomacy between President Trump and President Biden?
President Trump has a big chance now to finish this war. President Biden.
Yeah, young Republicans can be an age range all the way up to 40, but you're a woman all the way after the age of 14 in the eyes of many Republicans, it seems. Very strange inconsistency. That was a good one.
Now is not the president, so he doesn't have a chance to finish this war. And President Trump is really showed for the world that he can manage ceasefire in Middle East, and that's why I hope that he will do this, and we will also have such big success. For Ukraine, it's a big chance, and I hope that President Trump can manage it.
I would say the biggest difference is one is extremely competent and the other one is grossly incompetent.
Mr. President. Sir, a few weeks ago in New York when you two met, you said that you think Ukraine could ultimately take back all the territory that it's lost so far. Do you still think that's the case, or do you think there'll have to be some sort of
You never
swap of
know.
territories?
Look, you know, war is very interesting. You never know, do you? You just never know. With war and peace, but you never know. Please.
Russia calls Tomahawk supply to Ukraine as an escalation, yet it continues using similar cruise missiles like Caliber. And
Yeah. Who are you with? Who are you with? Ukraine?
Yeah.
Good.
But Russia continue even using the cruise missiles and also nuclear-capable ballistic missiles in Ukraine since 2022. So do you consider providing Ukraine with the Tomahawk or similar missiles as an opportunity to equalize the possibilities of Ukraine and Russia and push Moscow to the negotiation
Yeah,
table?
sure. We're going to be talking about that. That's why we're here. Okay? Fair question. Exactly as he told you to say it. But we're going to be talking about it. Okay? Yeah, please.
President, message to India and Hungary, who is still refusing.
You said India and Hungary? That's an interesting.
And Hungary.
India and Hungary. It's an interesting combination.
Refuse to stop buying Russian oil.
Well, India is not going to be buying Russian oil anymore. And Hungary is sort of stuck because they have one pipeline that's been there for years and years and years, and they're inland. They don't have sea. They don't have sea. And I spoke with the very...
That's crazy that he has a lower standard for Hungary purchasing Russian oil as opposed to India. I mean, that's... when he says India's not buying any more Russian oil, I don't know how much I believe him. I feel like he's just saying that at the domestic front in an effort to make it seem like he's doing things. Okay? That's what it feels like to me. It feels like to me he's just kind of saying that so that people feel like he's doing something. MAGA believes this? I mean, yeah, MAGA believes that Donald Trump is not Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, okay? They're stupid. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. Like, there's got to be a certain point where you have been there's got to be a certain point when you've been the recipient of so many so many awards where eventually, you know, you've been fooled so many times. Like, at a certain point, I'm gonna start believing that you enjoy it. You enjoy being fooled. Okay, you're kind of a cultist. Yeah, if you're looking like Admiral Zhukov with the Fell For It Again awards all over your chest, maybe you enjoy it.
A great leader of Hungary, and they are, you know, it's very hard for them to get oil. I understand it. Hungary's in a very interesting position because they can't have ports.
Sorry, not Admiral, Field Marshal Zhukov.
You know, they're surrounded by land. So we'll see what happens there. But India will not be buying oil from Russia. And they've already de-escalated, and they've more or less stopped.
They're pulling back. They bought about 38% of the oil, and they won't be doing it anymore.
Mr. President Trump has been helping you in achieving peace in Ukraine.
Who has?
First Lady Melania Trump has been helping in returning abducted Ukrainian children from Russian captivity. President Zelensky, do you appreciate those efforts? How do you assess them? And did you ask her to step in and to help you?
No, she wanted to do it. She felt very strongly about the children, and she's done a really good job, I think, in bringing it to the fore. You know, we have a lot of children involved. Now, it's some people say it's 20,000 and some people say it's 300. There's a big difference between that, so nobody really knows. But she felt very strongly about the children. She thinks about the children all the time.
President Trump, if you okay tomahawks to Ukraine, what's going to happen if the United States is in a conflict and we need the tomahawks? Do we have enough?
That's a problem. We need tomahawks, and we need a lot of other things that we've been sending over the last 4 years to Ukraine. We've been, we gave them a lot. Now we have a different situation. We send it to the European Union. They pay for it and all that, and they have plenty of money. But it's beyond the money. We need tomahawks, and we need a lot of other weapons that we're sending to Ukraine. One of the reasons we want to get this war over is exactly that. It's not easy for us to give. You're talking about massive numbers of very powerful weapons. So that's one of the things we'll be talking about. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about tomahawks. I think we're fairly close to that. Yeah, go ahead.
President,
yeah, please.
Just to understand. So for today, of course, we want to finish this war, but the war is another technological war. You don't use just tomahawks. If you want to target a military goal, you need thousands of drones. It goes together with such missiles. Ukraine has such thousands of our production drones, but we don't have tomahawks. That's why we need tomahawks. But United States is a very strong production, and the United States has tomahawks and other missiles, very strong missiles, but they can have our thousands of drones. That's why where we can work together, where we can strengthen American production.
And so just so that I understand, so you're suggesting kind of a trade. If President Trump okays Tomahawk missiles to help you launch
yes, it's about
Russia,
military goals.
Then
only about military goals.
Right, but then you would authorize some kind of an exchange where
yes, of course.
the U.S.
Yes, we have proposition. We have big proposition with our drones.
President Trump, I don't mean to be brokering an arms deal here, but is that something that you would be interested in, Ukrainian drones?
We are, yeah, we would. We have a lot of drones right now. We build our own drones, but we also buy drones from others, and they make a very good drone. I mean, drone warfare has really come to the fore over the last couple of years because of this war. I will say, there's nothing like the jets. We knocked out a lot of drones in Israel. We were knocking them out for Israel, and we were doing it with extremely fast and powerful jets, following the drones and knocking the hell out of them. So, we know a lot about the drones, and we know a lot about the great jets, the great ones.
Not invited to TwitchCon. That was the controversy 2 weeks ago, where I personally chose not to go to TwitchCon publicly in order not to put others in potential crosshairs. And then people yelled at me for it. But that was 2-3 weeks ago. You're a mobile chatter, I think. Yeah. Lock in. The new controversy is that I'm torturing this dog with my zapping powers. Like that. Another victim of the rewind. Yeah, he hit the rewind like 20 streams ago.
The ones, well,
actually, we moved back. We've moved past that. We actually moved past that. The Dogtober as well. Now is Cuomo. It's Cuomo over.
And the B-52s, which were totally they were stealth. They were undetectable. So we have a lot of different weapons. And, I have an obligation also, though, to make sure that we're completely stocked up as a country, because you never know what's going to happen. in war and peace, right? You never know what's going to happen. So we're going to be talking about tomahawks and would.
I mean, just say you don't want to get shot, bro. That other people could be in the crosshairs as possible, but you don't want to die, right? I don't have a fear of that. I don't care necessarily. I will continue doing, public
much rather have them not need tomahawks. Would much rather have the war be over, to be honest, because, we're in it to get the war over. We're not.
Wait, I thought they were saying the talking point that you weren't doing it for attention. Now they're saying you weren't invited. I don't know. Maybe they moved the talking points.
We're selling a lot of different types of weapon, as you know, to the European Union. We're not in it for that. We're in it to get it over. We're losing thousands of people a week, thousands of people. Russian, Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Mostly soldiers. But we're in it to see that end. And if we can end quickly, and I think we can. I had a very good talk yesterday. We're going to be talking about it. But I had a very productive talk yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. But the war in the Middle East was far more complicated. We got that one done. And I think we have a good chance. I think President Zelensky wants it done, and I think President Putin wants it done. Now all they have to do is get along a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think... I think Zelensky wants to get it done more than Putin. I think Putin wants to take as much territory as he can while extending the timeline over and over again with these unique gestures of goodwill that Trump takes sincerely every single time. Not to sound like a NATO Andy, but there was an opportunity to do this when Trump became president, and I even gave him credit for at least talking to Vladimir Putin directly. Something that I wished the Biden administration did on numerous occasions, because you do have to talk to the opposition here. You have to talk to the belligerent here in order to cut a treaty, in order to have permanent peace. Having said that, given the lack of leverage that America has, especially because they've exhausted almost all of the options, it's just, we're kind of cooked. I'm a HasanAbi head, but why is this so hard for you to... Oh, my God. I'm a HasanAbi head, but why is this so hard for you to apologize that you did your pet wrong, brother, and you're going to do better in the future? It would help you, and it would strengthen the trust and relationship with your reviewers if you apologize for your mistakes. No, that is a HasanAbi head. That's legitimately a long-term community subscriber who seemingly hasn't seen me take accountability for not immediately going over to Kaya to check in on her. That is true. But I did take accountability for that. Now, if you want me to take accountability for being a dog abuser, well, then that's not accountability. That's just me agreeing to the insane hallucinations of seemingly that person as well as the rest of the people online. Why are her eyes closed and she's not moving? She's dead. I shocked her so hard that she died.
Can you give us an update on the trade negotiations with China, or perhaps Secretary Bessent?
Yeah, I will, and I'm going to let Scott do that. But I think we're doing very well. I think we're getting along with China. China would like to have something as of this moment. We'll be meeting in a couple of weeks. We'll be meeting in South Korea.
You think
myself?
Will go forward?
I think so. It looks like it's going forward. I think so. They want to meet. We like to meet. I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and we're going to see what happens. But, for years we were taken advantage of by China very badly. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year to China. We really built their military, if you think about it. The kind of money that presidents allowed to be lost to China was just insane. And then when I came into office, as you know, I put very severe tariffs. So we took in hundreds of billions of dollars in my first term from China. Biden let that go because it was so much. He let it continue, but he gave all sorts of exceptions. And by the time you looked at it, Scott, I would say it wasn't the same thing. He would give an exception for anything. If you got up and went out to dinner, he'd give you an exception. So it wasn't the same thing. But I put on very serious tariffs. So we took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and then I left office. The election was rigged. I left office, and that was the story. Now I come back, and we are in a very strong position because of tariffs. We're in a very powerful position because of the fact that we have tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be in a very weak position. We would be in a weakened state. But with tariffs, we've made hundreds of billions of dollars, not only from China, but from others. And China wants to talk, and we like talking to China. So we have a very good relationship, and we're going to be meeting in South Korea a couple of weeks. And I just got back from a long trip. I'm going on another long trip. And Scott, you want to say a few words on that, please?
Yes, sir. So the entire relationship stems from the great perspective the two leaders have for each other. China did a substantial, unprovoked escalation last week. We were unable to get
literally not unprovoked. Literally not unprovoked. And also in line with exactly our trade posture against China for decades.
For them since then, it's been IMF World Bank Week. They have had working level people here who there have been meetings.
Yeah, this is the same as Israel always does a preemptive first strike, a defensive first strike, and anyone that retaliates against the United States of America is always retaliating, but it's unfair that they're doing so. Okay? Always. Venezuela is provoking Trump by existing, for example, existing on top of massive natural oil reserves. This is a provocation that must be addressed. China, over the course of the last 3 decades, has become the manufacturing hub of the planet. This was our design for international trade. America designed the world in this way. Okay? We benefited greatly from it. Problem is, now they got too much power as the manufacturing hub of the entire planet. This is a provocation. That's up. This is unfair. How dare they? This is inappropriate. We must address this. We must blow up the global trade design that we put together for no reason. Like for literally no reason other than Trump's endless need for money molestation.
Vice Premier, who is my counterpart, and I will be speaking this evening at around 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then he and I and a delegation will meet in Malaysia probably a week from tomorrow to prepare for the two presidents to meet. So I think that things have de-escalated. We hope that China will show the respect that we have shown them. And I am confident that President Trump, because of his relationship with President Xi, will be able to get things back on a good course.
Is the hope for that meeting with you and President Xi some kind of trade deal then? Or
could be.
More
Look, I think we're in a very strong position. We're getting, as you know, as of November 1st, I could move it up if I wanted, a 100% tariff over and above what we get now. So that would make it about 157%. And China doesn't want that, and they want to talk, and we're talking. And I think we'll make a deal that will be good for both. I think we will do something. But you have to understand, we never got anything from China. It was a one-way street. For many years, for decades, it was a one-way street. And they became rich because of the United States. And frankly, presidents that, let's be nice, they didn't know. They just didn't know. They didn't understand what was happening to them. But I understood it. I understood it long before I ran for politics. I used to watch in amazement at how stupid.
Is someone going to explain what's going on? Yes. Donald Trump is saying that without saying who is responsible for this, Donald Trump is attributing American international trade policy for the past 3 or 4 decades directly to Democrats and even Republicans that have played a formative role in this design, because this design has allowed China to get unimaginable power, becoming the international manufacturing hub with a robust industrial base. And instead of Donald Trump getting mad at the capital owners that played a major role in seeking out a cheaper labor market and completely restructuring the global economy to be reliant on China as the manufacturing hub, instead of getting mad at the forces of capital that have played a role in this grand design. He's just saying, oh, these guys just made they made tremendous mistakes in international trade policy. And the reason why he's saying that is because obviously as a billionaire, he himself is also one of those people who benefited from this relationship. That's why the Donald Trump ties or any number of different like Donald Trump products were also being manufactured in China. And they still are. That's why half of his merch is coming from China. Okay? The problem with China, from the American perspective, is that they weren't kept servile. They were able to take advantage of the unlimited greed of Western capitalists to get an unprecedented amount of foreign capital to come into their country and then use that foreign capital to engage in rapid urbanization and even development. If China had stayed unstable, if China had the same internal issues that India has, for example, that made it much easier for there to be a capitalist oligarchy style structure, then I don't think we'd be talking about China at all. Or at least we wouldn't be considering China a foreign adversary at all. We would be looking at China just like we look at India. The problem is China took that foreign capital and distributed it. China took that foreign capital and developed, not developed at the behest of their own national capital owners, but at the behest of all of China and all of the Chinese workers, uplifting the material conditions of the Chinese working class across the board. That's the real issue. And now that centralized structure of governance is tremendously advantageous, especially when there is global political competition, because China gets to make decisions at the top that are, one, beneficial for its own working class, and two, China can dramatically restructure their economy almost overnight if they choose to do so. This is not something that the decentralized system of capitalists, the decentralized system of governance that Western liberal capitalist nations have. They work at the behest of capital, where in China, capital is still a servant of the government. Now, this is still problematic in some sorts, especially if the government no longer wants to operate in the direction of uplifting the material conditions of the working class. If overnight China decided, no, we're going to also be, we're going to operate in the same way that like a fascist government would work, they could do so. I'm sure that there would be rebellion if that were to take place, but so far they have not done so. But that is the problem with at least the American position here. It's a problem when it comes to manufacturing, because while Western liberal capitalist countries also have a system of subsidies, what corporate overlords do with said subsidies is very different than what the Chinese state forces companies to do. Okay? Or I mean, it's not an enforcement necessarily, but because they control the flows of capital internally inside of the country, they can change the incentive structure to get people to move into other sectors in a way that is much faster than the ways that this would work in a Western liberal democracy. They can move the money around, and when they move the money around, they can get people to focus on building up different sectors that are necessary for whatever goals that the government has.
Our country was, how stupid they were. And we're not stupid anymore. And that includes with the European Union, that includes with Japan and South Korea. All we want to do is be treated fairly. But the fairly is hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars coming into the United States. And it's our national security is secure because of tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we would have no national security. So it's very important.
Will you seek China's help in ending the war in Ukraine? Do you need them to put pressure on Russia?
I'll be discussing that, but I'd love to see it ended before that.
President Trump.
I mean, I think we have a chance of ending the war quickly. If
I think another advantage of central planning and the system of governance that China has is that it has allowed them to set in motion 15-year plans and now 5-year plans. Okay, whereas Western liberal capitalist countries do not have that same structure. They do not have that same mechanism of control, or even if they did, because at the end of the day, states are incredibly powerful entities, right? The American government, if it chooses to do so, could actually, maybe not overnight, but and with a series of capital strikes and capital revolts, would be able to create a centrally planned economy as well. It would take a lot. It would require a lot of effort. It would require tremendous labor militancy, for example. But they could do that. It's not impossible. Every Western liberal capitalist nation could technically become a command economy, could have central planning if they chose to do so. We have a version of central planning in this country. Look at our agri sector. Look at the agribusiness, for example, right? It's just that we demand nothing in return for the subsidies, the taxpayer-funded subsidies, from the capital owners, because that's not the way this is supposed to be designed. The system is designed for capital owners to do whatever the they want. And over time, we have increasingly financialized our economy and worry about fake improvements in the stock prices, because everything still goes back to improving shareholder value, increasing shareholder value. This forces the American government and the powerful, the class of capital owners in America to focus on short-term profits. This makes it impossible for the United States of America to have like a 10-year plan or a 15-year project. There's a reason why China could just like prop up the world's tallest bridge virtually overnight for pennies on the dollar, or develop thousands of miles of high-speed rail since the year 2000, whereas in the United States of America, high-speed rail projects take decades and get nothing accomplished. It's not that the government has no power. It's that the government, the purpose of the government in Western nations is not to make these sorts of projects happen. It's to keep funneling money into unnecessary and increasingly costly middlemen. What is this? That's not surprising.
flexibility is shown on behalf, and again, we're not losing people. The United States is not, we're not losing people, we're not spending money, we're getting paid for the, ammunition and missiles and everything else that we're sending to the European Union, but to NATO. But it's very similar. If you look at the countries, it's very similar. And we just made a very fair trade deal with the European Union, and what we wanted, and we made a very good deal with NATO too. They pay for all of this. That's not what we're in this for. We're in it to save thousands of lives every week.
Yes, but sitting in a cubicle pushing pencils is far more prestigious than working with your hands. What do you suggest that the middlemen actually make something themselves? That's not even what I'm talking about. Because, this isn't even about like productive labor versus different forms of labor. I'm not even getting into that. I'm simply talking about I'm simply talking about the broader outlook here, that ultimately the American government is servile to capital and capital interests, and capital interests always revolve around improving profit margins for shareholders, increasing shareholder value. It's literally in the law. Okay. the boards have a fiduciary responsibility. If you are trying to compete against a country that doesn't have that interest whatsoever and simply wants to make government projects happen or simply wants to outcompete Western industry in certain sectors, whether it be solar panels or whether it be drone manufacturing or whether it be electric vehicle manufacturing, for example, they are going to make a lot of investments into this field, and they are going to make prices so unimaginably affordable that it is virtually impossible for Western liberal capitalists to compete with them. It's just not going to happen unless Western capitalists either do one of two things. One, they can try to make new rules around global trade, which is what they are trying to do right now. Make it illegal, right? Make it illegal for Chinese goods to enter the European markets, for example, or the American markets, which is, once again, a nuisance for Western capital owners because of the way that they have designed global trade, right? The other thing they could potentially do is take a hard look at the way that they have approached manufacturing and the way that they have organized their system of governance under a capitalist organization of the economy and restructure it. Restructure it so that they have they have an opportunity to actually outcompete China. Now, that's going to be very difficult because China has a 30-year decades and decades of building a robust industrial base in their country. They have a 30-year head start, so it's most likely not going to happen.
Thousands and thousands of lives. That's why we're in it. And I think we have a very good chance of bringing this war to a conclusion.
Peace president, and your cabinet has done honestly an excellent job. I think that a lot of people could agree to that.
Thank you.
I'm speaking as someone who lost my father in a war, so I know the human cost. What would your advice be to American leaders, to world leaders, to neocons, to TV hosts who often speak about conflict in abstract or strategic terms rather than the human cost and the human terms?
Look, my only statement is we have to get together. It's a very small group of people. It's the president, and the president. Okay, 3 presidents. And I'm the mediator president. And I'm mediating not an easy situation. It should be easy, but it's a lot easier when people understand each other, when they get together, and when they like each other. We don't necessarily have that situation as far as like is concerned. Maybe it can turn around. Maybe it can. But in the meantime, we'll have them keep a little bit of distance, and we're going to see if we can get it done. This is number 9, okay? This will be number 9 for me. I've solved 8, including the Middle East. I've solved 8. This, I thought, would have been among the easiest. We solved, President Putin mentioned yesterday Armenia, all of the different wars. He said it was amazing but the big one that he was surprised that we were able to settle was the Middle East. He thought it was incredible. He was very generous in that sense. This should be something we're able to settle, and I think we will be able to settle.
Brian? Sir. On that note, you will go down as the peacemaker, no doubt, and you will resolve this war.
Well, we resolved 8 others. It's funny how people say that. If you get this one, every time I do one, they forget about that one. I solved 8 wars. Go to Rwanda and the Congo, talk about India and Pakistan, look at Thailand, look at all of the wars that we solved. And every time I solve one, they say, if you solve the next one, you're going to get the Nobel Prize. I didn't get a Nobel Prize. Somebody got it who's a very nice woman, very nice. I don't know who she is, but she was very generous. So I don't care about all that stuff. I just care about saving lives. But this will be number 9. But every time I solve one, they said, sir, if you solve one more, you're going to be known as a peacekeeper. So to the best of my knowledge, we've never had a president that solved one war. Not one war. Bush started a war. A lot of them start wars, but they don't solve the wars. They don't.
I think one of the craziest parts about this, as he angles himself as the peace president, is that there is a former president who did stop a war. His name was Joseph Robinette Brandon. That's not even a joke. Like, he did do that. And everyone yelled at him for doing it at the time, except for people like myself and like the Chapo boys and Majority Report. There were very few allies on Biden's side on that issue. And of course, Biden then turned around and destroyed his legacy that will be forever tarnished because he turned around and gave Benjamin Netanyahu a bear hug after October 7, allowing Israel to do unlimited genocide. When Donald Trump says he's the peace president, what's so crazy about it is that like Joe Biden could have been definitionally the peace president if he demanded restraint from Israel. Okay. If he had, the Afghan withdrawal was one, but then on top of that, if he actually immediately insta-locked Israel into a restrained position, he could have been seen as a peace president. And I don't even think Donald Trump would be president right now if he had done that. Of course, for that to also happen, he would have to not be an ultra-Zionist. Of course, for that to happen, he would also have to not be incredibly old. But, such is the nature of politics, I guess. But it is funny when Donald Trump tries to claim he's the peace president, when not only is he trying to wage war, not only is he trying to wage war in Venezuela, not only did he continue Israel's genocide for 9 extra months when he had every opportunity to stop Israel dead in his tracks as soon as he came into office, which he did entertain for a brief moment. But he's also doing war on U.S. soil. The only reason why it hasn't completely turned into a full-blown war is that he's posturing and he's aggressively trying to get some kind of retaliation from the public, and the public is just not giving it to him. That's it. Because there is no other reason to send in the military to all of these blue cities other than try to get the people riled up enough that like someone ends up getting shot. That's it. There is nothing peaceful about like Donald Trump is unironically doing the domestic version of what he's doing in Venezuela, which is obviously supposed to be a little bit more restrained in democratic cities right now. That's what he's doing. He's like circling around and deploying the military to blue cities in an effort to foment some sort of civil unrest. It is insane. And we're supposed to sit here and be like, that's my peace president, dude.
Settle them. And especially when they have nothing to do with us. I guess just about all of these wars had nothing to do with us. But I saved tens of millions of lives. The Prime Minister of Pakistan said, I saved millions of lives in interceding on Pakistan. And you look at Pakistan and India as an example. That would have been a...
Yeah, you know what's funny about that? India denies this. Yeah. India denies that, which is funny. I retweeted Armand, the #1 China glazer, yesterday on this issue, where he actually brought this down. Arnaud Bertrand, #1 China glazer. Cambodia and Thailand, it was a border conflict that ended thanks to mediation by Malaysia. All Trump did was a phone call threatening tariffs. Kosovo and Serbia, there was no war. DRC and Rwanda, war did not end. Violence continues. Pakistan and India. India is adamant there was no U.S. mediation. Israel and Iran. The U.S. was literally a belligerent, obviously. Remember, the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Egypt and Ethiopia, there was no war. Armenia and Azerbaijan, the peace deal hasn't actually been signed. Israel and Hamas, beyond obscene for the U.S. to take credit for ending a genocide that it was a key enabler of. Doesn't this guy own Louis Vuitton? No, that's a different Arnaud. That's so funny. Yeah. One of the world's wealthiest billionaires who happens to sit on top of the throne of Louis Vuitton also seems to be a prolific Twitter poster who defends China all the time.
Bed with 2 nuclear nations, right? So I say this. This is pretty much the last one, although I do understand that Pakistan attacked, or there is an attack going on with Afghanistan. That's an easy one for me to solve if I have to solve it. In the meantime, I have to run the USA, but I love solving wars. You know why? I like stopping people from being killed, and I've saved millions and millions of lives, and I think we're going to have success with this war.
Wait,
please.
This, President Zelensky, this is your third time over here.
Oh.
And by the way, you look excellent.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Good
you.
suit for you, by the way. This is your third time here. How different sitting across from the president is this time versus the two previous times here at the White House, and how confident are you hearing the success rate?
Okay, I can't listen to this any further. I'm sorry. I'm done.